The Miyazawa family was killed on December 30th, 2000, at their house in Tokyo's Setagaya neighborhood. It is still an unresolved case that draws attention due to the criminal's peculiar conduct, and despite the fact that considerable evidence was left behind, the culprit is yet to be recognized. The Miyazawas were a typical Japanese family. They were loved and respected within the community. They also had no adversaries or anyone who may try to harm them. Mikio Miyazawa, 44, worked from home for Interbrand, a huge London-based marketing business that helped popularize the phrase Wi-Fi. He enjoyed animation, puppetry, and theatrical performances. Yasuko Miyazawa, 41, was a teacher who managed a cram school from her family home. She spent a great deal of time with her children. Nina, 8, was a second-grade student at a public school in Setagaya. She liked sports, ballet, and piano. Ray, 6, went to a public kindergarten in Setagaya. He had a speech problem, which concerned the family, so they engaged a professional to help him. The Miyazawa family originally moved into their home in 1990. They resided next door to Yasuko's mother, sister, and brother-in-law. The Miyazawa residence was semi-detached, with one common wall. There were no interior connections between the two dwellings. To get from one side to the other, you had to step outside and through another door. The family's home was located just beside Soshigaya Park, which also included a skate park. The park had been open for many years and was quite popular. Because of this, the city intended to enlarge it. This proposal prompted the 200 families who had resided there in 1990 to leave, leaving only 4: the Miyazawas, their relatives, and 2 other families. The family had been complaining about the skate park's loud noises. Mikio had even addressed a bunch of rowdy teens for creating excessive noise. Because of these upheavals, the Miyazawas intended to relocate in March 2001. Unfortunately, they would never get that opportunity. On Saturday, December 30th, about 6 p.m., the family went shopping at Seijoga Kwenmai Station, located less than a mile from their house. A neighbor who drove by verified that about 6:30 p.m., their automobile was not in the driveway. That evening, about 7 p.m., Yasuko contacted her mother next door. We don't know what the conversation was about, but we may presume it was about Nina going next door to watch TV, because she went next door immediately afterward to watch a recorded TV program till 9:30 p.m. Mikio read a work-related email that was password protected, which meant that only he had access to it. This was the Miyazawa family's final reported activity. Around 10 p.m., a pedestrian overheard what appeared to be an argument in the residence. Around 11:30 p.m., Yasuko's family reported hearing a huge explosion coming from the Miyazawa residence. They didn't know the precise hour, but they could guess it based on the TV schedule at the time. Around the same time, another eyewitness claimed to have seen a guy hurrying along the walking path near to the family's home. On December 31st, 2000 at 11 a.m., Yasuko's mother attempted to contact her daughter's relatives to make arrangements for the afternoon. However, there was no ringtone. Unbeknownst to her, the phone lines in the Miyazawa family house had been purposely disconnected. The murderer disconnected the telephone line. Worried, She walked next door and rang the doorbell. However, there were no responses, motions, or sounds. So she used her own set of keys to get in. She was instantly greeted with Mikio Miyazawa's body at the bottom of the stairway, leading up to the second floor. Mikio was stabbed to death. She called out to the family, but received no response. When she walked upstairs, she found the bodies of Yasuko and Niina. They had been stabbed more viciously than Mikio. At this time, Yasuko's mother placed her hands on them. Yasuko's mother then went to the bedroom adjacent to Yasuko and Niina and discovered Rei on his bed. He was strangled to death, prompting police to believe he was the first member of the family to be slain. According to Yasuko's mother's testimony, Mikio's body was concealed in a drawer, while Yasuko's body was covered in garments. However, the cops did not observe this, therefore it is unknown whether their faces were concealed. However, Rei's face was covered by a futon, while Nina's face was turned down. It has been reported that if the attacker is familiar with the victim, their face may be concealed. The ensuing police inquiry uncovered more than 12,545 pieces of evidence. The killer left a trail of evidence, including fingerprints, footprints, excrement in the bathroom, clothing, and murder weapons. A sashimi knife purchased by the perpetrator, and a knife found in the Miyazawa home. Police also discovered blood and footprints that were not from any of the Miyazawas. The murderer is suspected to have entered through the bathroom's second-floor window. The dust screens in the bathroom on the site were destroyed as a result of the event, and the murderer's shoe prints were discovered on the ground under the window. The limbs of trees placed near this window were also found to be damaged. The popular belief is that the killer entered the bathroom and turned right to reach Rei's room, who was the first member of the family to be strangled. Mikio, who was in the first-floor study area, most likely heard a commotion and hurried upstairs to investigate. As the murderer left Rei's chamber, he notices Mikio. They had an altercation on top of the steps. However, the killer ultimately stabs him with a sashimi knife and either tosses Mikio or causes him to fall down the steps. The murderer then proceeded to assault Niina and Yasuko before retreating after the sashimi knife broke. Yasuko obtained a first aid package to treat her daughter's wounds, assuming the killer had given up. However, this was not the case as the killer returned from the kitchen with a knife from their own house. Based on the contents of their stomachs, the family died about 11:30 p.m. It is also speculated that Yasuko and Nina hid upstairs from the attacker after Nina's blood was discovered on the futon. According to investigators, the girls received more stab wounds than the father. Both victims were stabbed even after they died. This led the notion that the murderer was aggressive towards women. It is believed that the criminal lurked around the house for more than 10 hours, right up until morning. There is also a possibility that the perpetrator escaped at night. It is speculated that the perpetrator had been treating a wound on his right hand he got during the attack. Adhesive plasters with the fingerprints and blood of the criminal, and towels with bloodstains, were scattered in the kitchen on the second floor. One of the bandages was applied to the wound, then peeled off and pasted on the back of the notebook in the living room. There is also evidence that he used female hygiene products to stop bleeding. There is evidence that the perpetrator helped himself to 4 bottles of barley tea, melon, and 4 ice cream cups from the family fridge. One ice cream container was found on the bathtub on the second floor, another on the cushion in the living room, and 2 more were piled up on the side of the computer on the first floor. The criminal's saliva was also found on the cup he used to drink tea. He had wandered around the house as he ate ice cream. The killer used the computer at 1:18 a.m. and ate ice cream cups as he browsed the internet for 5 minutes and 18 seconds. He visited the site of Shiki Theater Company, which was bookmarked by Mikio. He attempted to buy tickets to see a show with the family's credit cards, but he was unsuccessful. He logged on again in the morning at 10:05 for 4 minutes and 16 seconds. He visited the pages of Mikio's company and Yasuko's school. After browsing, he pulled the power cord of the computer. The power cord was not found at the scene. Fingerprints were found on the mouse, but not the keyboard. He had also spread out personal documents, diaries, identification cards, utility bills, bank books, and other documents on the dining room table and the sofa on the second floor. The second floor bathtub was filled with documents, receipts, towels, sanitary products, and other garbage. He had also left feces in the bathroom. The feces were tested and it was discovered that the food he had eaten was a sesame spinach dish with string beans that had been consumed somewhere else. This type of food is something that mothers make for their sons. At some point, evidence shows that the killer took a nap on the couch in the living room. Police found that a tuition fee was stolen, and Mikio's and Yasuko's wallets were emptied. Looking at how the killer had spread the documents on the table, this may be because he wanted to know the PIN to Mikio's bank account. This gave rise to the theory that the main motivation for the crime was robbery. However, cash, passports, bank cards, and jewelry was left behind. Many strange events were reported to have occurred before the murders. A witness reported seeing Mikio arguing with the Bosozoku, a motorcycle gang who are known for being violent and dangerous. They were also known to carry weapons. In the months prior to the crime, the community had started to notice incidents of violent animal abuse. Animals in the area were being physically tortured and killed. There were rumors that rodents were killed, and even the local stray cats had been tortured. But later on it was determined that this was done by a bank clerk who had no connection to the murders of the Miyazawa family. On December 25th, Yasuko had mentioned to her father-in-law that a strange car had been repeatedly parked in front of their house despite the fact that there were other empty parking spaces nearby, which wouldn't require the owner of the car to jump over a fence to get into the park. On December 27th, an eyewitness had seen a man estimated to be in his 40s wandering around the Miyazawa family home. On December 29th, the day before the crime, a young man was spotted near Seiyogakuen Station, which was just a few miles away from where the Miyazawa family was living. The man was seen to be wearing a skater-type outfit, similar to the clothes found at the crime scene along with a backpack. The eyewitness thought this was unusual because the man was underdressed for the weather. It was also on this day that police believe a man matching this rough description purchased a sashimi knife from that same shopping area. It was the only one purchased at this supermarket on that day. On December 30th, a man stated to be between 35-40 and matching the same description of the suspect was seen near Sengawa Station, roughly a mile from the Miyazawa home. A man was also seen hurrying away on a path near the home at around 11:35 p.m., suspected to be the killer hurrying in his way to climb the fence. Suspicious events were reported following the day of murder. Near the Miyazawa house, after midnight, a taxi driver had picked up 3 passengers who were all middle-aged men that remained quiet during the whole journey. The taxi driver recalls this as very weird. It was past midnight, and these 3 men were being dropped off at a nearby station not too far away. One of these men apparently had a wound on him that left a blood stain in the back seat of the cab. However, police tested the blood and found out that it was only chocolate. At dawn, a woman was driving past Setagaya Park when a man jumped in front of her car, lightly brushing it. She got out to check on him and saw blood on the back of his left hand. At 5:25 a.m., a man in his 30s went into a medical office near Tobuniko Station looking for treatment for a knife wound that was so deep that his bones could be seen. He left without saying his name. It was noted in some reports that the electricity on the first floor of the targeted house was on when the incident was discovered. According to the newspaper delivery man, when he delivered the morning newspaper on the early morning of the 31st, the electricity at the entrance to the victim's house was off. Another passerby testified that the lights in the victim's house were turned off before dawn. However, Yasuko's mother, Haruko, said that the lights were on when she visited. A man who looked about 30 years old was seen on a rapid train arriving at Tobuniko Station at 5:26 p.m. Witnesses said he was so deeply injured that his bones could be seen in his right hand. The man was said to be about 175 centimeters tall and dressed in a black down jacket and jeans. Mikio Miyazawa's documents were in kanji. Kanji is one of the most complex writing styles in Japan and is taught at an early age. It is speculated since the killer was able to read kanji, it must mean they were probably raised in Japan. The blood from the bandages found at the scene were tested, revealing that the killer was male with blood type A. Toxicology reports suggested that he had taken no drugs and that he was a non-smoker. Footprints were found throughout the house. Near the bunk bed, outside the house, under the bathroom window, and on the stairs. On the stairs, the footprints switch position halfway up from the wall side to the handrail side. This stepping pattern is consistent with military training. Yasuko's mother, Haruko, had reported hearing a loud bang from the house at approximately 11:30 p.m. After testing what the sound might be, police discovered that it was the sound of the ladder that led to the loft being pulled down. The suspect's fingerprints were found all around the house. His thumbprint had a unique swirl pattern with 2 lines on the center resembling a pig nose. His fingerprints were run through the Japanese criminal database, but found no match. This means the perpetrator seemingly had no prior criminal record. The perpetrator had changed his clothes and left his outfit folded nicely. He probably left wearing Mikio's old jacket. The killer left his raglan shirt, jacket, crusher hat, gloves, muffler, shoes, and even his perfume at the crime scene. 2 plain black handkerchiefs were also found, recently washed and ironed. Many people connect this with military training, since in the military you have to iron your clothes a lot. Others have theorized that he lived with a female caregiver at home. 1 handkerchief was folded into a triangle and had squeezed ends, so it is possible that it was used as a face mask. The other one was unfolded and had a 3-centimeter cut in the center, allowing it to be used as a bag-like pouch to prevent injury and slippage. This method is similar to something done in fish processing plants. It is also similar to the way soldiers and gangs wrap knives during rituals and hunts in parts of the northern Philippines. Killer's hip bag was also left at the murder scene. The bag was worn out, so it may have been used for a long time. The length of his hip bag belt was 83 centimeters, but had been modified to fit a waist from 70 to 75 centimeters. Some evidence that was found was a piece of grip tape used for the surface of skateboards. In the bag there were 2 strands of black hair that may belong to the killer. One of the hairs was black and 2.5 centimeters long. The other hair was blackish brown and 1.5 millimeter long. It is believed that both hair strands were cut by hair clippers. Inside, there was also a trace of a fluorescent red agent which is normally found in stage production. The police also found this agent in the family's garage. However, it was locked, and there were no traces that the killer had entered it. This raised possibilities that the killer had been here previously, and/or that he works in some stage-related career. However, that theory was soon eliminated when the 2 agents were found to be different. It was determined that the agent in the hip bag was a mark of a famous highlighter pen. This gave the possibility that the killer was a student during the hip bag sales period, around 1995-1999. The bag also contained different types of sand. One type is found in the Miura Peninsula, and another is found in California, specifically near the Edwards Air Base. The clothing items were all washed in hard water, while Japan uses a soft water system. This might mean that the perpetrator is of Korean heritage, or he had traveled there since Korea uses a hard water system. From the style of the clothes and trace evidence, it is suspected that the killer was between 15 to 35 years old and is possibly of Korean heritage, or had recently traveled there. At the time of the crime, he was around 170 centimeters tall and was slim. He was probably right-handed and physically well-built. He was probably a skateboarder since the brands he wore were popular among skateboarders, and also because of the grains of sand. California is the birthplace of skateboarding, and there are places where skateboarders gather in Umikaze Park on the Miura Peninsula, and competitions are held there frequently. Police investigated the stores that sold specific items. However, they found no further leads to the suspect. In 2006, the DNA of the criminal was tested again using DNA profiling. This showed that the criminal was probably of mixed race. The maternal DNA indicated that his mother was of European descent, possibly from a South European country near the Mediterranean or Adriatic Sea. It is considered possible that the European maternal DNA comes from a distant ancestor from the mother's line, rather than from a fully European mother. His paternal DNA indicates a father of East Asian descent. Analysis of his Y chromosome showed the haplogroup OM122, a common haplogroup distributed in East Asian peoples, appearing in 1 in 4 or 5 Koreans, 1 in 10 Chinese, and 1 in 13 Japanese. These led police to believe that the killer's father is more likely Korean or Chinese. These results also led the Tokyo Metropolitan Police to seek assistance from the International Criminal Police Organization because the killer may not be Japanese or living in Japan. However, the possibility that the criminal is a Japanese native is not denied. It's been about 20 years since the incident, and no likely suspect has yet been caught. The case is now in the hands of Manabu Ide, from Tokyo Metropolitan Police Special Investigative Task Force, who remains confident that the mysterious crime will be solved. So let's just hope he is correct, and that justice will eventually be served for the Miyazawa family and their loved ones.